West Street, which has been an issue in land court for
a long time.
As well as a number of other properties in town. We found out from our attorney that there is a standing motion that is pending with land court and has been pending for 4 months. And we also have a handful of other standing motions that have been sitting for months. The court does tend to take a long time to hear these motions. And so until they hear the motion, we will not have a resolution on how we can move forward. How the court rules determines what happens next. So if they rule that it's okay to move forward, then I believe we're at the end of the road and we can take the property. But the land court is known to find flaws in these type of motions, and then that can restart the whole process essentially. So until the court makes their determination, we will not know what happens next with the properties that do have standing motions, and that includes the 1000 West Street property.
Okay, so I would say that it might be helpful, useful to contact Representative Berthium and Senator Goby and say, this seems so arbitrary and capricious that it makes it impossible for the town to address citizens' concerns regarding these properties. Some of them are really, I wouldn't want to live across the street from some of them. I'm sure rodents and other issues are of concern. So if we could make a note of that to make those outreach.
Yep, absolutely.
Any other comments on that, John? The people who have been, waiting and, trying very hard to be patient, but we've, this land court thing has just gone on beyond. I assume our new treasurer has had an impact on the attorney?
Yes. Yeah, he's been making progress with communication.
Yeah, well, he's better make progress. As I said, we're done waiting for this man.
Yes.
Okay, what do you got?
The next thing is I had a meeting last week with the Green Communities folks. Green Communities is a grant program and a designation for the town of Barre that helps fund energy efficiency projects. So we spoke about doing another audit of the town buildings to see potential grant opportunities. And I pinpointed a couple of issues that we have specifically in the Henry Woods building, at the police department, and at the library. I also had a conversation with them about adding the schools onto our energy reduction plan. So this has been one of the goals of the folks that work at the state and with CMRPC on this, is to add the schools because it can expand, the number of projects that we're eligible for. So we've had a couple of conversations with the schools, and their concern was mainly regarding the high school and the administration building, because those buildings are owned by the school district. Whereas
Ruggles Lane is owned by the town of Barre.
Ruggles Lane is owned by the town, and in other communities like Hubbardston, they've added the elementary school there to the energy reduction plan. So we are revisiting that conversation, and it does come down to the support of the select board to add them to the plan, and then the superintendent has to sign off on it as well.
Well, it's our asset.
Yes.
In Ruggles Lane. So the lease agreement would certainly not prohibit.
Right.
So I don't see the school department having an issue with that. Now, any grant that we would get for the district would be hard to pass through just the town of Barre.
Right.
Because that's not our asset. That's only 38% of our asset.
Yeah. So I will have a conversation with the superintendent again about just adding Ruggles Lane, and then I invited the Green Communities folks to come to our next meeting in mid-January to discuss adding Ruggles Lane.
Okay.
So
That's-
that will be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, okay.
And then the last thing that I wanted to comment on was that today I received a quote from Charter. We were looking for that cable expansion project quote, and I did receive one that is a little bit less than the original quote, but I am waiting for a clarification on Charter's contribution. At the last time that they gave us a quote, they had a portion of the cost that they were going to contribute in kind, or maybe not in kind, but they were gonna take about $136,000 off of the original quote. So I am just double checking to see if that will be honored with this quote before I bring it to the board, and we move forward with that project.
Okay.
But it feels good to have finally gotten some kind of response out of those folks, and to actually have a number in front of me. So that is what I have for you today.
Okay. Anyone have further questions for the administrator? Hearing none, we can probably move on to select board reports. If we could add to our meeting in January that it would be upcoming, we would like to revisit the action that the select board previously took regarding in-kind or impact funding for the, I can't think of the name of the organization.
Community
care.
No, caregiver.
Well, you know.
CPC.
CPC.
Yes.
And extension of contract, and make
Yes.
sure that we end up being in compliance with whatever the new state regulations are.
Okay.
I mean, we took some action, and then the owner responded to us and said, no, that's not exactly what I wanted. So, I mean, we think we should just have a discussion on that in sometime in January. And we perhaps would, advise the individuals who are the authorized owners of the property to have conversations with us as well.
Okay.
So I'd just like to get that wrapped up, because what we did at one meeting, the owner called the next day and said, no, that's not exactly what I want, and there's some reasons why. So we should clean that up.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I just have an update on the Master Plan Steering Committee. So we do have a live survey now for, it's at townofbarrymasterplan.com. There's also a Facebook page, so we have a main survey and then also a student survey that are going on right now, and we're just trying to encourage everyone to take those and get feedback in before we continue on with the process.
Okay. Anything else, John? I think we're good.
Yep.
Okay, I have gotten a few, I wouldn't call it correspondence, they have not been official, but a few emails, and some of you may have as well, regarding this racetrack thing, controversy over in Hardwick.
Yes.
I certainly have no desire, personally as a select board member, to represent our town and respond to some,
Mhm.
citizens from another town asking us to sort of support or not support something. So I just want to let people know that we did get some emails. I did personally get some emails. I don't know if other people did as well.
Yep.
Okay, so we got it,
Yep.
and it's not, at least not my recommendation that we respond to that. I would not be loving it if Hardwick were to take on a controversial issue from Barre and begin to help us decide what that should be.
And I will say too, from the correspondence I've received, none of it has been from anyone in town or in Hardwick for that
Hardwick
matter.
either.
Exactly, yeah.
Some of the math doesn't add up either in those emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So-
agree.
So, yeah, just to let people know that we have received some correspondence, but not necessarily from the select board or from the finance committee or
Yeah,
anything like
nothing.
that. So that's not official, and thus we won't respond to that. So, moving on to new business personnel, master plan steering committee. Do you want to have a comment on that, John? It looks like the
Yep.
Council on
So
Aging.
Council on Aging put forward Stan. He's actually been at the meetings giving helping with input already.
Okay.
So it's just formalizing him as a member.
I would move approval of the Council on Aging's recommendation for Stan Maknaitis to be their representative on the Master Plan
I'd
Steering
second.
Committee. We have a motion made and seconded for Stan Maknaitis to fill that role. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need a delegate for Central Mass Regional Planning. We need, the Board of Selectmen needs to identify an alternate. It appears that our records indicate that the current planning board's delegate is Doug Martin, who used to be sort of the chairperson of the planning board. I believe he still is a member at this time. What we need is a current Board of Selectmen alternate. Okay, that position has been vacant, I guess, for a year. And they're looking for us to name an alternate, who would, I guess, stand in Doug Martin's position should he be unable to attend.
Correct.
Now that Greg's not here, we could certainly appoint, or one of us could decide that we would act in that regard.
I'm certainly open to. I think I just need to verify what that board does to make sure it's not a conflict of interest.
So I believe that the board,
It looks like
so
community-
essentially the delegates and alternates help inform CMRPC's goals and visions. So it says here, the delegates and alternates are a vital link with the Planning Commission that enables us to deliver support services, to compete for discretionary grant funds, to identify community needs in transportation and land use, and to foster sub-regional cooperation through shared services and procurement. And it says communities with active delegates and alternates fare better in receiving a return on your investment than those who fail to communicate local needs or link up with our programs. So there's basically an advocate for the town at that level.
Yeah.
Well, I would say if John is willing to act in that regard, if it is not a conflict of interest to any of his other assignments.
Which I, from what I understand, I don't believe this has any influence over TIP projects, and so I do think it would be something I could
Yeah, I think the tip
serve as the alternate for.
the tip is a totally different.
And if by chance there is some issue of concern where John feels he would not, I would be happy to, happy to be the alternate to the alternate, if necessary. In
Yeah.
other words, because John has already shouldered a lot of work in this regional planning area, so we're greatly appreciative of that.
Yeah.
You got that in the minutes there? Sort of, kind of? We didn't take a formal vote, but it probably is necessary that I recommend that John Dixon fill the vacancy as a selectman alternate, and that Marshall would, if necessary, and act as, in his stead, should there be a conflict of interest with his other selectman duties that have been assigned.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, John. Greg doesn't know how lucky he is that we're just not assigning him to all this stuff. Okay, so we have public police policy update. I have had the opportunity to review those and so forth. It seems like it's pretty much boilerplate. I found a few little things that I would have stated it differently, but my expectation is these are from other documents that have been agreed upon by a myriad of police departments. So I saw nothing that was overzealous or nothing that would not have protect the public. And it is the first time we've had this level of, this number of policies that would actually give the police department the guidance that it should and needs. It also holds the police department accountable should one of its officers not act in proper form, that there is, obviously situational things where there's all kinds of data here. I can't believe that they wouldn't be going over these with their employees, and thus I feel it's a much safer and much more professional look at our police department.
I certainly appreciate the
effort.
the
That's a lot of
effort
work.
that's going into putting these policies in writing, and not only that, but carried out.
Yeah, and they're seeking our their accreditation, and
Yes.
that is a very, that takes an awful lot of time from the chief and his associates, and it will make them a far better police department going forward. I commend him for taking this responsibility and
It's a big
working so hard
project.
to move it forward.
For sure.
It's a good effort.
Yeah,
It's
sure is.
going to benefit this town.
I mean, I don't think that we are required to approve these. It doesn't request our approval.
No.
Just that we have an opportunity to review them and discuss them and seek clarification if necessary.
Correct.
Okay, but please commend the chief for us for his work on this. A real professional effort.
Mhm.
I mean, when you think about the town of Barre actually talking about facial recognition technology, I think that's pretty cool. Annual license renewal, this is just a victualler's permit, and it's for, what is the name of that place again? We talked.
White Rabbit
White-
Farm.
Tell me, where is White Rabbit Farm?
I don't-
I'm just
I
unsh-
don't
It's
know.
Margaret
Tolman?
Tolman? Margaret Tolman?
It's a very small
Okay,
place.
Yeah, I
have
didn't
that
put,
one.
This
I
isn't
didn't
it.
put her application in there, I just put the.
okay. Well, could you at our next meeting just give us the area that it's representing? I've just never heard of it.
It's on Wawanit
Well,
Road.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It is it looks like.
Because a
an
victualler's permit is one place where you go and buy food.
954.
Yep, so they have
Well, Winnet Road?
Yep.
Wawanit Road, it's an organic farm.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
I just didn't know if we were Alice in Wonderland or if this was
Oh,
something
yeah, no,
else.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Okay,
Yeah, they are committed to growing tasty, fresh, locally grown,
Organic.
and culturally appropriate vegetables.
oh, okay, good.
Great. Well, I would move to approve
I would second that motion.
common picture license for White Rabbit Farm.
I would second that. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none. Unanimous vote. Select Board Directive discussed.
This is,
Yes.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
this, one of the things, obviously, one of the things Greg brought up before was a direction policy of how to handle different veterans claims that are going through the town.
Right,
And looking into that a little more, I think we might need to come up with a better system for organizing and keeping policies and directives that, I had asked Jessica about it, and, for example, the select board ruled at one point to not have dogs in the Henry Woods building.
yeah.
And there's, we don't have a good record-keeping system of it. It's almost similar to the policies, the way the police department's keeping them now, to establish a system where we have a record and where we have essentially just policy for, any town employees and how we expect business to be carried out on behalf of the town.
I know we have a variety of such things scattered around, and it would be very useful to follow your recommendation. Also, I would suspect that Mass Municipal Association has some handbooks, I mean, some things basically that you can buy.
Yeah.
And it would show you all the policies that would be recommended that have already been legally vetted, right?
Right.
So I would suspect that we could start there.
Yep.
Because they will have a lot of the things that we've tried to self-create would be available in a legally vetted document.
Mhm.
I know it will probably cost us a little money, but it might be worth looking into.
That and also bringing up all of the old things that
Yes.
have been established in town that we are scattered, and bringing those together under, policy,
Right.
X from this year,
Right.
in this directive, make sure those are properly distributed to everyone who needs to know
Yeah.
them, and then have a record of those, cataloged so they can be referred to.
Okay, and I know we can get strong direction from MMA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of resource sharing through the MMA, so it might not cost anything. It's just a matter of getting to the resource.
Determining who's done it well. and
Because it's all,
how
at the end of the day, it's all public record, so
Yes.
if they were to make us pay for public.
Well, I would just say that the Mass Association
Yeah.
of School Committees
Yep,
has such a document, that is generally available for school districts. and trust me, you pay for it.
Huh, interesting.
Well, it's a lot of work. They pay a lot of money to a legal person to go through every one of those to ensure that it complies with state statute, that it does all of those things that, quite frankly, if we had to pay,
Our own
individually, our own
lawyer.
attorney,
Yeah,
it would be
Super
wildly more
Yeah.
expensive. So I would say if it does, if there is a cost to it, it's probably well worth our effort. Otherwise, we would either not ever vet things legally, and kind of go it on our own, or we would vet them legally and it would be costly.
right.
And I mean, even things that may not need to be vetted, such as, no dogs in this
Yeah.
building, just having those recorded, having those, having a system, so that
Okay.
in the future, there's a record of what's been done, why, things change over time too. We can understand, if we can track why things were done, we can understand if it's still
Yeah.
even remotely applicable in 10, 15 years.
So I know that we can ask you to do that in MMA and just see what they've got.
Yeah, but
And-
what systems might be the best option for us to use?
Absolutely.
And I know we've discussed at our last meeting, the use of ARPA funds to fix that door. That's to the elevator, and to ensure that it's not gonna rust out again because of how it's put in there, and I cannot believe the cost that they're asking us to pay for this, but what was the cost? Was it,
12,000.
that was 12,000 just for the door?
12,679 for the installation, disposal of the
Oh, okay,
existing
so
door.
at least we got installation and
Push
disposal.
button, ADA.
Yeah. And it's 88, I mean, the fact that it is in the condition it's in is sinful.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we need to make sure the building stays accessible to
yeah, safely, because it's really bad. I would seek a motion to approve the use of ARPA funds to replace the commercial door and hardware so that the door to the elevator is accessible to all the population.
I make that motion.
No. Yes, yeah, continue.
Go ahead. John, you second?
Oh, yes. I think
Oh,
he
I
made
made
the
the
motion,
motion.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. You made the motion?
I made the motion as Maureen said.
Okay, Maureen second. I got it recorded.
Okay.
Did you second?
Yes, I,
Okay.
Okay.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And when will that be done? Do you have a time frame on that?
No, we did not have a time frame.
I just
think.
wondered
It
when-
was, I think it depends on the weather at this point.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know if it has to be a custom-built door or whatever the time frame
Well, if you
on
could
getting
just-
materials
yeah,
are. But
yeah.
once we accept the quote, we will have a better
Okay.
idea on what the timeline will be.
Okay,
But we just need to get to this point where we have a quote
Okay.
accepted.
okay, great. It'll be nice to see that fixed.
Yes.
All right, it appears that anything else that the board is going to discuss this evening will be an executive session. Executive session, we would go into executive session under Mass General Law, Section 30A, Section 21A, to discuss strategy with respect to a collective bargaining or litigation. And we need a second for that,
Second?
and a roll call to do that.
Dixon, yes?
Marshall, yes?